So today we will be showing you guys the difference and similarities between the earthworm and the frog. We will be doing this through comparison of anatomical structure and the use of the phylogenetic trees to show their relatedness.
The frog animal background. The taxonomic names for the species of the kingdom is Animalia, phylum, Chordata, and its class is an amphibian. Family is Ranidae and genus. The ecological habitat in which the frog lives in, they can typically be found in freshwater habitats such as ponds, lakes, streams, rivers, and creeks. It is essential for them to live in these type of environments since they need to maintain the moisture in their skin. Mating in this species typically involves the male wrapping its arms around the female as the female deposits its eggs, while the male's job is to fertilize them. The food chain is a series of organisms, obviously, that depends on each other's as sources of food. And as we can see, the grass is where it all starts off at, and it slowly branches out into the rabbit, the insect, the slug, and so forth. The anatomy of the frog can be seen as the median lobe, the left lobe, the right lobe of the liver, the left lung, the right lung, the gallbladder, the fat body is the stomach, and so forth.
The, this is the earthworm's background. Taxonomic names include the kingdom, Animalia, phylum, Annelida, class, Oligochaeta, order, Opisthopora, family, Lumbricidae, genus, Lumbricus, and the species Lumbricus terrestris. Ecological habitat would include mostly temperate and tropical soils. Usually these are affected by water, thus humidity of the soil and the pH of the water will affect its body since usually it absorbs the water and is essential for survival since it is usually suspected to be used for migration and movement across the land. Mating the earthworm's mating patterns are usually in the invert sides, thus they enter parallel positions for the exchange of semen and sorry. Earthworms usually enter a parallel position for exchange of necessary bodily fluids, including semen and liquids for fertilization. They are considered hermaphrodites since both exchange the same liquids and both have eggs, thus both laying eggs essentially.
Here we have the worm food chain. As we can see, the worm is one of the lower classes of animals, showing us that the worm is more the animals on top depend more on the worm because that's their source of food. We could see the worm eats the dead leaves. However, the worm is eaten by the hedgehog and through the fox. So the worm would go missing from the food chain. The fox and the hedgehog would likely be severely affected in population because of lack of earthworms.
As we can see, as we can see, the worm is composed of several parts, surprisingly, by especially the skin through the epidermis, cuticle, and the cellular muscle, usually being soft. Surprisingly, it has a dorsal vessel and a nerve cord in its body, although it is not a chordate. So it also inside we could see the central ganglia, its mouth for consumption, and in the other one we see the dissected area as well. We see the pharynx, which is the top part of the mouth. It intestines for processing. It has its pumping vessels for blood, usually through The pore usually absorb fine water in pores. We see the crop, the gizzard, and its vesicles.
Starting off with comparing the respiratory systems of the frog and earthworm, I'd first like to point out that their shared traits of having moist skin. This is a trait that is an important role for both organisms' diffusion respiratory system. However, frogs do have a secondary respiratory system that includes lungs. This differentiates both organisms, as although they share similar membranous respiratory tissues for diffusion, frogs have other adaptations such as pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchioles, lungs, but no diaphragm. The reproductive systems are similar as both inhabit external fertilization, have testes and ovaries. The earthworms mating habits make use of their clitellum, a swelled epithelial layer to hold its reproductive organs, a ventral surface to pair with another worm, and mucus in which to fertilize their eggs. Female frogs differ from earthworms as they hold their eggs within uteri, egg sacs, before a male produces sperm through their cloaca. The frog's digestive system is unique as it contains specialized organs such as liver, pancreas, and gallbladder, each functioning to support the frog's diverse intake of food such as spiders, snails, worms, and tiny insects. Where the earthworm has less organs such as the gizzard and calciferous glands due to its primary food intake of soil nutrients. The excretory system of both organisms are similar as each dispose of waste through the cloaca/anus, and each organism has an organ for blood detoxification, which are two kidneys for the frog and a nephridia for the earthworm. The grass frog also has a urinary bladder to hold its urine and a ureter to connect the kidneys to the cloaca. The organisms share closed circulatory systems, but each have different structures such as the presence of lungs within the system and a number of heart chambers they have. The frog has a pulmonary system, meaning it has lungs incorporating into the system, and it also has a heart with two aortas and one ventricle. The worm has a systematic system, meaning it doesn't make use of lungs, and instead of a single heart, the worm instead has 5 pairs of aortic heart chambers. The nervous systems of the frog and worm are more similar than different. The frog makes use of differentiation of having nerves within its skull, and a worm having a porphyrins, which makes them sensitive to light. Other than that, they have both a spinal cord, spinal nerves, and a brain. The phylogenetic tree tells us that the most recent ancestor to connection from amphibians to annelids is the presence of bilateria, which is the symmetry of an organism. What we found is that yes, there was a predominant area for these animals to have evolved because they had been late construction era to today. During these eras, we could see temperature changes in oxygen levels, sea level, and tectonic activity, heavy natural disasters, and famines and extinctions. Importantly, ocean oxygen levels had risen from which prompted the burst of animal diversity.
To the question, was there the development of new predators? We found that with more organisms starting to move on the land, there was more food chains that were developed. And when a food chain is developed, you have your predators and your prey. And so yes, to the worms and to the predators and to the frogs, as previously shown, we were able to see that new food waves were constructed with the new organisms coming to land.
So the question is basically asking if animals were co-evolving, and are there any conclusions that we have found? So from the Crow data, there's only the bilateral symmetry commonality. Annelids are more closely related to the arthropod and the mollusk, shown in segmentation and soft body structure. One of the oldest amphibian ancestors is around 160 million years old. Evolution into what is the modern frog was brought by changing condition of the world from temperature, oxygen levels, and water.
The bilateral or the bilateral is considered to be the closest common ancestor in the bilateral phylum before the division into prosomes and durasomes. It is believed to have a worm-like shape. This could be seen in that with change in temperature and soil, it slowly evolved into what would become the modern worm. It also could explain the worms having a nerve cord, the fact that eventually the evolution would split up into two separate ones, and the slow but eventual evolution of what would be the spinal cord.